Let me ask you something. When was the last time you watched a team willingly hand over one of their best players, a guy coming off 4 straight 20-goal seasons, a guy who just won a gold medal at the Olympics, a guy who was literally averaging over 20 minutes of ice time a night, and walk away with a defenseman, a prospect, and a third-round pick? Because that's exactly what just happened on July 1, 2026, when the New York Rangers officially shipped Vincent Trocheck to the Utah Mammoth. And if you're scratching your head, if you're sitting there thinking this feels like the Rangers just blinked, just settled, just gave away a core piece of their identity for pennies on the dollar, well, you're not wrong to feel that way. But you might also be missing the much bigger picture that Chris Drury has been quietly painting since January. Let's go back to the beginning of all of this, because this trade didn't happen in a vacuum. It didn't happen because Utah suddenly made a phone call and everything lined up perfectly on July 1st. This deal has been years in the making, or more accurately, it's been 6 months of calculated maneuvering by a front office that decided the window had officially closed, even if the public wasn't ready to hear it. On January 16, 2026, Chris Drury sat down and wrote a letter. Not a press release, not a post-game comment, an actual letter to Rangers fans. And in that letter, he used a word that every Rangers fan immediately dissected from 14 different angles: retool. Not rebuild. Retool. He was careful about that distinction, because he knew a rebuild would send shockwaves through a fan base that had watched this team reach the Eastern Conference Final in both 2022 and 2024. He was saying, "We're not blowing this up, we're redirecting it." He wrote that the Rangers would target players who bring tenacity, skill, speed, and a winning pedigree, and that the focus would be on obtaining young players, draft picks, and cap space to allow them flexibility moving forward. And then came the line that hit every veteran fan in the chest, that it may mean saying goodbye to players that have brought us and our fans great moments over the years. Before he released that letter to the public, Drury held individual meetings with the leadership core. Mika Zibanejad, J.T. Miller, Adam Fox, Artemi Panarin, and Vincent Trocheck. Sources described those conversations as extremely candid. You don't hold extremely candid conversations with a guy and then just casually keep him around for the next few months without an agenda. The writing was on the wall for Trocheck from that exact moment. Then came February. Panarin goes to Los Angeles in exchange for Liam Greentree and a pair of conditional picks. Look, we could do a whole separate video on whether that was a fair return, and honestly, a lot of people think it wasn't, but the point is that move was the first domino. It told the league exactly what the Rangers were doing. They were clearing bodies. They were opening cap space. They were going younger. And suddenly every team in the NHL started looking at the Rangers roster like a clearance rack at a department store. Who's next? Which piece is available? And the answer that kept coming back from every single insider in the business was the same: Trocheck. Now here's where it gets interesting, because Trocheck didn't just sit there quietly and let this happen to him. The man had leverage and he knew it. His contract runs through the 2028-29 season at $5.6 million per year, which by today's market is genuinely one of the better value contracts in the league for a center of his caliber. He also had a 12-team no-trade list, meaning he had real control over where he ended up. And he wasn't shy about using it. When reporters asked him about trade rumors in March, he was direct. He said Western teams were on his no-trade list. He said family is important to him, and his family is on the East Coast. He made it crystal clear that he wasn't going to be shipped off to just any destination because it was convenient for the front office. So what happens? The trade deadline comes and goes. Teams are circling, offers are being floated, and reportedly the Rangers even scratched Trocheck for a game, kept him out of the lineup entirely, because a deal felt so close that putting him on the ice seemed like a risk. And then nothing. No trade. The deadline passes. The Rangers hold him. Sources at the time said management believed more offers would come during the summer, that the summer market would produce a better return. And you know what? They were right to wait, because that's exactly what happened. Then the 2026 NHL draft comes and goes without a deal. Fans are getting antsy. Trocheck himself changed his representation this summer, moving over to Pat Brisson, one of the most powerful agents in the entire game, which told you everything about where his head was at. He was ready to move. He just wanted to move somewhere that made sense for him and his family. And eventually, the Rangers and Utah found common ground, and on July 1st, Elliot Friedman broke the news on X, Trocheck to the Mammoth. In return, the Rangers received defenseman Sean Durzi, forward prospect Cole Bedoin, and a 2027 third-round pick. Now let's talk about what the Rangers actually got, because I think this is where the narrative starts to shift if you're paying close attention. Sean Durzi is a right-handed defenseman who immediately addresses one of the Rangers' most pressing positional needs. They've been thin on the right side of their blue line, and Durzi is an NHL-ready player who can help right now. That's not an accident. Chris Drury has been very deliberate in this retool about targeting players who are close to NHL-ready rather than just stockpiling high picks that won't pay off for 4 or 5 years. This isn't the 2018 rebuild. Drury has been vocal about that distinction. But the piece of this deal that has people genuinely excited is Cole Bedoin. 20 years old, selected 24th overall in the 2024 NHL draft by the Mammoth, and he just came off one of the most absurd OHL seasons you'll see from a prospect at that level, 88 points in the regular season with the Barrie Colts, 33 goals and 55 assists, a plus-minus of +40. That's not a player padding stats on a bad team. That's a player dominating. And Drury got him as part of a Trocheck package. That's the blueprint he's been following: get proven value from today's veterans to secure blue-chip youth for tomorrow. Now zoom out and look at what the Rangers have constructed here. They've got roughly $27 million in cap space after this summer's moves. They used their 5th overall pick in the 2026 draft. They have 11 total picks to work with. They have Alexis Lafreniere and Will Kuehl as the developing core of the forward group. They have prospects like Laba, Robertson, Kartai, and Sikora in the pipeline. And now they've added Bedoin and Durzi. The skeleton of something real is starting to take shape. The question is whether Drury can execute the rest of it, because frankly, the Panarin trade didn't inspire maximum confidence in terms of raw return value. If he gets Trocheck right, if Bedoin develops into what his numbers suggest he can be, this retool starts to look like a legitimate plan rather than just a controlled demolition with a fancy name. But let's not completely ignore the human side of all of this, because Vincent Trocheck deserves more than a line on a trade chart. This is a guy who came to New York in the summer of 2022 as a free agent, signed a 7-year deal, and became everything the Rangers needed him to be. 253 points in 313 games as a Ranger. A career-high 77 points in 2023-24, which earned him his first All-Star nod since 2017. He played in all 82